Here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. By 2030, most companies won't fail because of bad ideas, they'll fail because their organization can't scale. More people won't save you, better structure will.
Fair use.
I want to just hear your advice on how to scale and
Hiring.
hiring
That's right. Instead of making $10,000 in profit in February, make 7,000.
with other employees.
Of course, that's exactly right. I have 2,000 of them for VaynerX. It started with me and my brother.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm RJ here with KR, and this is where independent thinkers come to build financial durability for the decade ahead. And if you're serious about navigating the economics of 2030, hit subscribe and join the newsletter because the next decade won't wait for anyone.
Let's start it right off, man. For decades, scaling meant one thing, like Gary said. Hire more people, add more managers, expand faster than your competitors. But the world is changing. Those systems were built for the old days, and that will no longer exist. Capital is tighter, growth is slower, trade barricades are there, and regulations are getting heavier. And don't forget the most important one, AI. The supposed silver bullet only works if your organization is designed to absorb it. In 2030, scaling doesn't mean getting bigger. It means getting modular, leaner, and resilient. The big shift framing today's episode comes straight from institutions, not Twitter threads. The International Monetary Fund basically said one thing: slower growth and higher uncertainty are not temporary shocks. They are structural conditions. Let's take a look. As it says, the IMF has delivered a sobering reminder to business leaders. Economic uncertainty is no longer an exception, but the new baseline. And that matters because most companies are still building for the opposite world. They are still hiring, well, not all of them, but there are still out there that are hiring. And if you think about this warning and also the warnings from the World Bank saying that there will be a trade fragmentation, suddenly you have bloated organizations with fragile supply chains that get punished. And then you layer on top of that the AI, which the WF, the World Economic Forum, says is becoming also a baseline. At the end of the day, the only thing you have is workflows, data access, and decisions that are designed for it. So if you cannot make it work, it will go wrong. Fair use.
It's all about the people and making the business model as simple as humanly possible. So I have not seen somebody scale to huge size without having boots on the ground, operators per location that are incentivized like owners. Same like Chick-fil-A, right? Like they basically own them all. Panda Express, he owns them all. But they have operators in place. You can look up their comp structure, but those guys make about 200-ish a year. And that's a really profitable business. And so I think for most service businesses, you could probably get to 100-ish a year for them. Like that's where they're aimed. And they're probably really thrilled.
RJ, do you think this type of advice will make it further than 2026?
I think it will, because I don't think that every change will happen drastically and every change in every sector will happen drastically. In some industries, the change will be more drastic than the other. However, I do think that for many people, it's not only whether it's applicable in 2026, but for many people, every year, again, whether or not the same advice is applicable, yes or no. Because the changes and the transitions are happening so fast. The technological advances are happening so fast. The increase in demand is happening so fast. The change in how we as human beings communicate with each other is happening so fast that you can listen to an advice today, but that advice won't be applicable or would be the best advice tomorrow. That's what I would say. So the advice in itself. But let's talk about accountability. Most founders don't actually design organizations, right? They accumulate people. And then they're shocked when coordination costs explode. But if output grows linearly while income, at least while communication grows exponentially, that's not scaling. That's decay. But let's do a simple math, right? We have a company, let's call it company A, doubles its revenue. We know it's not Grant Cardone's company because he 10x's, he doesn't double. Yeah. So company A doubles revenue and doubles headcount. Salaries, managers, HR, compliance, meetings, fixed costs explode. Company B doubles revenue but adds 15 to 20% capacity through automation, tooling, and modular systems and teams, right? One company is prepared to survive volatility. The other can do nothing more than panicking at the first downturn. And the IMF made it clear, right? It expects volatility as a default. It wouldn't be an exception. And this gets worse when you stack pressure, right? So slower growth means mistakes last longer. Trade friction means expansion is harder. And regulation, especially in Europe and other countries where you have high regulations, it's no longer going to be a footnote. The EU's AI Act makes compliance a design problem, not a legal cleanup job.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you on that. You know, going back to what you said, the accumulation of people, you can clearly see right now that companies are cutting in that workforce. They're already starting to cut, working towards that 2030. So by 2030, companies that are not modular will hit a ceiling, and they're trying to work towards that. If you don't have the modular aspect, you'll look busy. You'll sound strategic, but you also move slower than smaller competitors. This means that AI won't save you because AI amplifies structure and it doesn't really replaces it. So if your structure is bad, the only thing it will do is amplify a bad structure. That's one thing you have to always think about when you're working with AI. So legacy setups where lots of layers, slow decision lines, functional silos will break, handoff delays, not my problem kind of idea. Big fixed costs become fragile during volatility. Scaling means more meetings, more managers, more overhead, more cost. So the difference is the new way of doing it. Modular and lean, which will win. Think about small autonomous teams that can ship, learn, iterate, work lean without permission change. So you have to be able to change on a dime, work fast. You also have reusable compounds, platforms, components, playbooks, automation. You have to be able to learn, iterate, and reuse that process. Variable cost bias. Think about contractors, AI augmentation. That variable cost bias will make downturns survivable. And last but not least, a clear interface that reduces coordination as you grow. So, which is kind of right now a silent killer. So research on flatter designs suggests that flat structures can beat hierarchies when the goal is speed, creativity, talent, attraction. That only applies if it's designed intentionally. So what you don't have is chaos masquerading as culture. If you look at the macro data, research from McKinsey and companies shows that companies shifting to product and platform operating models scales faster and have less costs. Another research by Boston Consultancy Group warns that half of agile transformations fail because they didn't change rituals nor the structures. So you have to change both. Meanwhile, World Economic Forum, the well-known group, projects massive skill shifts driven by AI. I mean, they're well known, but you have to listen sometimes to people that are well known, right? People would rather listen to actors, follow into their device, into their binges, but they won't listen to other people. But going back,
Well, before we go, KR, let's just stress that the World Economic Forum is pushing AI programs and robotics.
yeah, they're pushing it. I mean, times are moving. Either you jump on the ship or you stay behind
And be happy.
and be happy. Yeah. So they project massive scale shifts driven by AI, meaning organizations must be adaptable by design. Your AI will support your team. AI will support your structure. AI will support your business. If you look at all these points together, here's what accelerates these trends. Capital discipline is kind of permanent. Regulation will continue to expand. AI is accelerating, and the tolerance for inefficiency will be eradicated. So I'm talking about inefficiency. It will be eradicated. So people will have no tolerance for inefficiencies. You clearly can see that already right now. So by 2030, scaling is less about more headcounts. It's about speed, resilience, repeatability under tougher conditions. The capital will be less forgiving. People are not giving capital as easy anymore. The trade barriers, fragmentation, race, supply chain, and expansion complexity and punishes organizations that are too big, too many people. And at the end, AI will become a baseline, the advantage, but only if the organization is designed to absorb it. The workflows, the design rights, data access, those are the most particular things that you have to work on. Regulations become an operating constraint. People are already asking right now for AI regulations. Some organizations are projecting anti-AI sentiment. The way people are right now having, let's call it outsider sentiment, anti-outsider sentiment. So scaling in 2030 at the end means that you can grow output faster than cost without breaking quality, culture, or compliance. That's it. Ajay, do you have maybe a framework or something you want to add to this?
So here's how I believe you can actually build for scale in 2030. So what a business that actually scales looks like is, first and foremost, you scale the system, not the people. If the growth of a company depends on heroic employees, you don't have a business, right? Design principle, turn execution into modules. Repeatable processes, standardized interfaces, like KR mentioned, handoffs, APIs, templates, and rules. You need measurable outputs. This is the core logic of modularity in organizations. Clear boundaries and clear interfaces improves performance and adaptability with trade-offs if misapplied. The second one would be the product and platform operating module, right? So the factory and the Lego combo. A common scaling pattern in modern firms is product teams own the outcomes, so the revenue, retention, and customer value. Platform teams build reusable capabilities, such as payments, identity, data, and internal tools. McKinsey's research on product and platform transformations of about 50 organizations frames this shift as a major lever for scaling when it's done with the right governance and design. The third one would be to remember that a network of teams replaces most hierarchy. Agile organizations research describes the scalable structure as a stable backbone with a flexible network of teams. Faster coordination, less bureaucratic drag. The BCG also stresses that agile theater is common. Only about half of firms claiming high agile maturity show real impact. So the design has to be real, not just rituals and sticky notes.
True.
We also have another important point, which is the AI first workflows and agentic teams, which will be the 25 to 2030 shift. Right now, the AI isn't as developed as it can be, but it's way farther than it was when it first became popular amongst the people. And agentic teams aren't really what they can be. They're very, very basic at the moment, right? But operating modules are moving toward AI integrated work where teams are outcome aligned and supported by automation. McKinsey describes this as the rise of agentic operating modules, and the workforce trend line supports it. Employers expect major skill change by 2030 and see AI and/or info processing as a leading transformation driver. You can turn this all into the modular acronym, so the modular framework, and you can't make this up. This is an acronym created by our team of experts, and this mental is what we're using You also have the AI first workflows and agentic teams. As you guys know, and you know it as well, KR. I mean, a couple of years ago, ChatGPT became popular and everyone was using it, and then came other LLMs, and it was in a very rudimentary place. And look at where it is now, and we can only imagine where it's going to be in 2030. We can say the same thing about agentic teams, right? But operating modules are moving toward AI integrated work where teams are outcome aligned and supported by automation. McKinsey describes this as the rise of agentic operating modules. And the workforce trend line supports this. Employers expect major skill change by 2030 and see Employers expect major skill change by 2030 and see AI and/or info processing as a leading transformation driver. And here in this show, we like to use a term that we coined, which is the modular framework. And basically, it's an acronym that we live by and we try to build our platform on, which we believe is future-proof, right? This mental model is what we're using to also compress what actually works in a modern scaling, modularity, lean cost structures, platforms, teams, AI first workflows, right? And we try to do this into something you can remember and apply. So modular, it's an acronym. The M stands for metrics tied to outcomes. If a team can't tell you the outcome they own, they don't owe anything. Every team owns 1 to 3 outcomes. This avoids performance theater. And think about it, agile research emphasizes outcome orientation and team networks. The O of the acronym modular stands for ownership with real decision rights. Responsibility without authority is theater. If a team owns a metric, it needs a real authority. The D stands for decouple teams with clear interfaces. So APIs, templates, SLAs, clarity kills coordination drag. Define what teams provide to each other. You need the service level agreements, you need the APIs, you need the templates, you need definition of done. The U in the acronym modular stands for upgradable, and specifically referring to the upgrading of a platform's core. So you have shared data, think about automation, think about internal tools, reusable compounds, right? Invest early in reusable capabilities such as data automation, internal tools, payments, identity, if relevant. Think also of product and platform shift evidence. The L stands for lean cost structure. So the lean principle. Bias towards variable cost and AI leverage. Bias to variable cost and automation. This matches the macro reality of slower growth and uncertainty. You have the A in the acronym modular that stands for AI, specifically inside the workflows and not inside a department. So if AI doesn't reduce cycle time, it's just vibes. Design work, so AI actually reduces cycle time. Drafting, analysis, Q&A, support, internal operations, agentic organization, direction. And last but certainly not least, the R stands for regulatory readiness by design. Especially if you're working in the EU or operating in a country with high regulatory supervision, compliance built early beats retrofitting chaos. So for EU-facing businesses, for example, build compliance into product development timelines.
If you look at the whole spectrum, to sum it up, scaling in 2030 isn't about size. It's about your structure, how you structure your AI, like you said, the whole modular framework. I mean, it sounds pretty good. You have to be ready. And if your company gets heavier as it grows, you're not scaling towards 2030. You're basically accumulating risk. And I think you can clearly see that if you look at corporate in these past few years, they have been cutting a lot of risks. Keep that in mind. Look at how the big companies are doing it and try to learn from them as well. That's it from my side.
Hey, you heard what KR said? Size doesn't matter. If this episode hits home, that's where the change starts. Make sure you're subscribed and check out our next video. It's been a pleasure. Until the next one. Peace.
It's the motion of the ocean.
It's the motion of the
Peace.
ocean.